just finished with another just incredible, powerful call with these extraordinary women who are taking this 9-month journey in awakening their sacred feminine fire. And every phase or section, we call it spiral, we move into a new element. So we're just moved into the fire, and of course I bring neuroscience to every element. And I thought I'd share. I feel like I don't share with the general public as much. A lot of this I like to do the more contained kind of group work or private work. However, it just dawned on me that this is information that can just help anyone. And I forget just how many people may not have been exposed. So maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't. So when we come into fire, long story short, the fire is the element that ignites us into action, right? It's the and with action actually comes fear often. So it's the element that invites us to fiercely face that fear and to transform our fears into fuel, so that we can dance with that fire, with the vision, with whatever it is that scares us. But we know that it is something that our soul is came here to do. And this can be really scary. This can be really, really scary. And that is so normal. And so the other side of this, we're also working with a coaching model that weaves in the koshas, which is one of the most ancient models of multidimensionality, based in the Sanskrit ancient Vedic scriptures. And so Manomaya kosha is associated with the fire. Manomaya kosha is one of the 5 layers. So there's 5 aspects of us. I know different schools of thought can describe even more layers. But Manomaya kosha has to do with the nervous system. And I like to think of it as the part of the nervous system that transforms through fear, the part of the nervous system that learns, the part of the nervous system that the fight or flight, right? The part of the nervous system that tells stories. So it's our ego and our expression and our personality. A lot of people, I know I did for a while, I had this negative association around the word ego and the concept of ego. I just need to get out of my, I'm so in my ego right now, or that person is in their ego. Let's get out of our ego. However, there's a shadow side to the ego, but there's this really beautiful and powerful and inspiring and needed side to the ego, which is about the story, of who you are, right? There's this saying, it's a Native American proverb, I can't remember which group it came from or individual it came from, but it says, "Tell me a fact and I'll listen. Tell me a truth and I'll learn. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever," right? And so with these amazing brains that we have, one of the, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Everything. So one of the blessings actually, is that we are making machines. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. But basically, our brains are here to make sense of the world around us and inside of us. And the only way it knows how to do that is to create story. So we're always going to be creating stories. Always, always, always. It's just, as long as we're in these human bodies, it's going to happen. So instead of trying to get out of story altogether, I believe our part of our purpose in evolving our consciousness is, instead of getting out of all story, how do we transform that story? How do we tell the story, rewrite, repattern the story, a belief, in the most powerful way? How do we retell the story? So we are getting into a really exciting part of the journey where everyone is identifying the stories that they've been carrying with them that don't empower them, that don't feel so nice inside. And bringing the body online, bringing the body online. And so the part about facing fears, so the 3 little neuroscience nuggets that I offered for these women, that I'll offer to you right now, is when you are facing fear, when you notice the doubts come up, when you notice the overwhelm. That's not hard to do, to feel overwhelmed in this modern day and age. Number 1, breath. This is the first thing that we can go to. This is the simplest thing we can go to. Because, and there's a very simple way to understand this. I think when we understand the nervous system to a certain extent, it helps, it empowers us to give us more incentive to really follow some of these practices based on that understanding. We have there's like 2 sides of our peripheral nervous system that is that facilitates that fight or flight response. We have the sympathetic and we have the parasympathetic, okay? Sympathetic, you can think of that as putting on the gas, parasympathetic, putting on the brakes. So it's sympathetic, and so in this work of masculine and sacred feminine, sympathetic is has the masculine or the yang qualities, energetic qualities, and the parasympathetic is our yin system, the more feminine aspect. So moon, sun, night, day, you can weave in all of these. All of these follow the same yin yang tendencies, and you can think of that symbol, right? And it's not a black and white. It's not black and white. There's a little bit of each in the other at the same time. So anyway, I digress. So when we get startled, for example, and somebody comes in, something breaks on the floor, or there's a knock on the door and you didn't expect it, that's kind of the startle response, or car accident, or whatever it is. Our instinctual, what the body instinctively does immediately is inhale. It's just automatic. So when we breathe in, we stimulate and activate our masculine yang sympathetic system to kick things into gear to prepare the body to fight or flight. So, but when we exhale, this activates the feminine and the parasympathetic nervous system, okay, which has us relax, rest, and digest, and brings us into a relaxation state. So, if we can consciously practice, this stuff takes practice, right? The habit is, okay, and as soon as we notice the and the constriction, exhale. Exhale. Exhale into calm, okay? The second thing is to name it, to use your voice, okay? So breath and then voice, and there's really amazing studies with humans and functional MRI studies that show brain activity and the difference between someone who's experiencing an intense emotion that's like fear or anger or even sadness. They can see how activated the limbic system and the amygdala, all of that is. It's bright, bright red. You can look this up. There's actually many studies on this now. And then the difference between that brain and that person who just is instructed to sit with it, and then another person, and of course they're looking at groups here, who is instructed to, as soon as they feel that intensity of that emotion, to name it, to use their voice to say, I'm feeling anger. I feel mad. I feel sad. There is an immediate decrease in activity in the in the limbic, in the emotional brain. Okay? And so it happens immediately, and so won't get into the details of all that, although that's fascinating too. But it's interesting. We have a 3-year-old, and a lot of the conscious parenting blogs that we go to and books and experts remind us to, or encourage us to, encourage our child to name how they're feeling, to help them to learn the words. Because when a 3-year-old can say that he's mad or she's mad, it's much easier. It becomes easier for them to regulate their dysregulated state, to get it back. And it's really tough for a 2 or 3 or baby or infant, and even adults, I think, in this day and age. Most of us growing up were not instructed to give voice to how we feel. And so this is new paradigm. This is the sacred feminine, and I know that this is the balance of the nurturing mother energy that's coming through. And it's so interesting to be a mother of a 3-year-old and to see the parallels of, wow, what is going to support this child in being as healthy and happy and regulated and harmonious as possible, right? And what are the things that are going to send him into a fear state and have him be out of balance? And so what I see, and I think what a lot of us are seeing now, is that we need to begin to heal that inner child within all of us. So going back to number 1, your breath. Number 2, your voice. Number 3 is your body. Okay. We have to move that energy out. If the energy, and this is the whole basis of trauma, right? It's really trauma. All trauma is it's fear that doesn't move out, right? It's shock and fear that gets stuck inside of the body. It comes into the body with that inhale, and then it just stays there. It just stays there because we're taught. We're not taught. I'd rather say we're not taught to shake it out. Okay, animals in the wild, this is their instinct. This is actually our instinct too, but we have been conditioned to be still and sit and not give in to the natural impulses of our body, and which is interesting. But now we're coming back to our body, to our physical earth, our mama, our mother, our and this is not a woman-man thing. We're all being invited to come back to our bodies. Animals in the wild, a deer that gets hit by a car, and kind of stumbles off to the side, will fall down. But then once that deer gets up, the first thing it does is shake. It just shakes, it trembles, and then it runs, and it's over, and it's done. There's no PTSD for that deer. And a lot of this happened, and with children too. If you watch them, they're so resilient because they are so in their bodies, and they know how to move that energy. And sometimes that's crying and screaming. And so those are very, very healthy things. I mean, there's appropriate ways to do it and places to do it. But it's time for us to let the tears flow, and to let our bodies flow, to let the movement flow, okay, so that it doesn't get stuck inside of us. And so, yeah, that's all I've got for now. Actually, I could go on and on and on and on. Thank you for listening. Thank you for, if you are listening, I absolutely, without a doubt, certainly know that you are tapping into something really big in your heart and your soul. And probably feeling called to do something that is scary in your life, whether it's leave your job or leave a relationship or get on that stage and sing that song in front of 1,000 people or write that book, whatever it is. Baby steps, baby steps. Remember, execute on the exhale and name it and tame it and move it out. Move it out. And my beloved husband, he's a black belt in facing fears. I'm really, really lucky and privileged and honored to live day-to-day life with him and get to see him in action and have some of it rub off on me, although I'm still really very much a white belt, I feel. But one of the questions that he asks that, and he reminds me of whenever I get into my head and start to feel afraid to do something that I really want to do, and then all the but how, and he comes in and says, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? What's the worst that's going to happen? Sometimes we forget to ask ourselves that question and really dig deep into what is it that we are really afraid of, and what do we risk in not moving forward, and what do we stand to gain in moving forward. So that's from Nova, and that's it. Aloha, namaste from Bali. Have a beautiful day.